Hello, hello. I am Nicole and I wanted to share. I'm going to start reading from Melody Beattie's Codependents Guide to the 12 Steps. And I have read some of it before, but it's been a while and I didn't finish, so we'll see how far we get. So I will be posting these regularly. All right. So the book that I'm reading from today, again, the Codependents Guide to the 12 Steps. There are all kinds of 12-step programs. There are Alcoholics Anonymous, Narcotics Anonymous, Codependents Anonymous. And actually, I have something called the Life Recovery Bible, and it's great. And there's a 12-step program that is not seemingly attached to any organization or, anything. So, all right, I'm going to go ahead and start right from the beginning at the introduction. The 12 steps are the biggest healing gift to the 20th century, said Terry N. The first time I was exposed to the 12 steps, I was forced into the state hospital to recover from chemical addiction. I didn't want to be there. I didn't want to get sober, but I had to stay in treatment to avoid legal problems. As part of the treatment agenda, I had to attend a peculiar session in the hospital auditorium. Twice weekly, people from the community came in, walked on stage, and talked about themselves. They said how awful life used to be when they were drinking, what had happened, and how good life was now. They had gone from trouble to pain and living happily ever after. I sat in the back row, as far back as I could. One day, a man said something that hit me right in the solar plexus. He was no longer talking about himself. He was talking about me, my pain, my struggles, the fears I had hidden, even from myself. Something changed despite my agenda. I got sober. 7 years and several relationships with alcoholics later, I knew I needed something more than sobriety. I wasn't on my way to living happily ever after. I was on my way to codependency recovery. I found myself again facing these 12 steps, this time from a different point of view. This time I was being affected by another person's alcoholism. Before long, I learned the truth. It wasn't about the other person, it was about me and my codependency issues. What I now believe were present from age 4. I wasn't happy to be facing these steps again. I didn't like being in so much pain that I needed another recovery. I thought one big problem was all a person should have to face in one lifetime. But I'm grateful now. The first time I was exposed to these steps gave me sobriety. The second time I was exposed to them, they gave me a self and a life. They gave me recovery from codependency. This is a book about the 12 steps and how these principles can be applied to codependency recovery, regardless of which 12-step program you now regularly attend. Many of us have looked for magic. We've prayed, waited, prayed, searched, longed, and hoped for the day that would unlock the mystery of recovery in our life. We've looked for the person, place, or thing that would make us feel better, that would stop our pain and change us. How many times have we attended a seminar, bought a book, or gone to a therapist hoping to be transformed? These activities help. They're valid tools on this journey, but there's more. I regularly receive letters from people asking when I'm going to lead a seminar or asking if the person could commit with me. If I could talk to you, then I'd get better. You hold the key, the magic to my recovery. I know the feeling well because I felt it about others. If only I could stand in the presence of Larnie Larson or Ann Wilson Chef or any of the other teachers long enough, then I'd be changed. I'd be transformed. I know that's not true. We each have our own key, our own magic. We each have the power and the ability to discover that magic and tap into our own healing process, regardless of our present circumstances. The way to do that is by working the 12 steps. These are the basic principles of recovery from our codependency. By working these steps, we will be led at the right time to the people, seminars, helping professionals, and books that we need. But the steps are the core of transformation. They are the path to recovery. That's why I'm writing a book about them. Many 12-step programs related to codependency recovery have sprung up across the nation. Many of these groups are inundated with new members and have a shortage of old-timers, people with practical experience working the steps. Sometimes group members practicing in group and what they are there to recover from: caretaking, shame, controlling, obsessing, victimization, and neglect of self-responsibility. For lack of knowing what else to do, many find themselves sitting in group, focusing on the subject instead of the solution, the steps. This is my gift to those of you recovering from codependency. While there are multiple codependency groups all over the world and in various stages from infancy into coming of age. It is also a gift to myself. Writing this book has renewed and refreshed my belief in these steps and their ability to facilitate recovery in anyone's life, including my own. To write this book, I've interviewed people who regularly attend a variety of groups, from CODA, Codependents Anonymous, to Al-Anon, for those affected by a loved one's drinking, to Families Anonymous, people concerned with chemical or behavioral problems in a loved one, usually a child, to COSA, Codependents of Sex Addicts, and more. I've talked to people recovering from multiple addictions, combinations such as eating disorder, chemical dependency, and codependency. I've talked to people recovering from incest or abuse issues and codependency. I've talked to people who consider themselves just codependent. I've talked to people from the straight and gay communities. I've talked to people from all parts of the country who, in a variety of dialects, are learning to stop asking, "How can I help you?" and start asking, "How can I help myself?" The common denominator of the people I've talked to is that regardless of the 12-step group they attend, they considered codependency as an important recovery issue and were willing to talk about how the 12 steps applied to codependency issues. The people interviewed were not talking to me on behalf of any particular group. This book is not endorsed, sponsored by, or affiliated with any particular 12-step group. It does not represent the opinion of any 12-step group. It is not written to promote any 12-step group. It is written to spark and trigger individual thinking about how these steps can facilitate healing from codependency. Then you can show others how these principles are working. That's called recovery. The anonymity of people interviewed has been protected, including in the book of the list of the 12 programs that people are using to recover from codependency and related issues. You will also find a list of books that people have found helpful at different times in their recovery. Some of these are recovery books, others are treasures, little gifts that have helped along the way. It is a list of the classics and the favorites. You can use this book any way you choose. It is not intended to be read cover to cover. You can dive in at any chapter or any step that feels right for you. This is not the book of the steps. As with my other writings, it is my personal and prejudiced opinion. At the end of each chapter, I have included suggested activities to trigger thinking about how each step applies to your life. You can read the questions and think about your answers, or you may want to write your answers in a journal or a notebook. To help clarify your thinking and facilitate your recovery, you may want to discuss your answers with a trusted friend. Almost done. It is with the greatest respect that I write about these 12 steps originally designed for recovery from alcoholism. In this book, I have tried to capture how these steps work for recovery from codependency issues. Yet, writing about these steps is a weak reflection of what these steps are and what they do. The magic, the mystery, and the power in these steps can be understood only when each of us personally applies these steps in our lives. That's when they reveal themselves. That's when they become more than just a list of 12 suggestions. Read about these steps. Read about what these steps have done for us, then capture their mystery and magic in your life. A note here for beginners. It can often be confusing to hear recovery jargon such as working a step. What does it mean to work a step? Some people think about, write about, and work on the steps in the same way they would on school homework or tax returns, in a disciplined, dedicated manner. Some work on the steps with their sponsor, another person in the program they choose as their mentor. Others go to meetings, listen, and let the steps sink in. Others find a course somewhere in the middle. We are each free to find our own version of what it means to work a step. I found it helpful to think about these steps before, during, and sometimes after an incident when I would normally lapse into a codependent behavior, such as controlling or not taking care of myself. I think about the steps when I am in emotional pain, when I get stuck, and during these times I find myself running from my feelings. A natural process takes over, and many of us find ourselves instinctively focusing on these steps during the course of our lives. We start working the steps, and soon the steps begin to work on us. Sometimes they've worked on me when I've resisted. They change us, transform us, and work in ways we must experience, not intellectualize. Working the steps means making a very human effort to apply a recovery principle in our lives. And very profound behavior, emotional and spiritual results occur. In the following chapters, we'll look at these efforts and their results. Thanks for listening.